Hi, welcome to another episode of Queen Chronicles The Series. We are back with another topic. Today, we are discussing church hurt. Unfortunately, in our places of worship, there are things that happen within the church that sometimes prevent people from ever coming back to the church, or they deal with the things that they've experienced within the people at the church, or maybe something has happened or whatever it is. So that's what we're talking about today. So I want to open up the conversation to my sisters here, and I guess have you experienced church hurt? And if not you personally, but what are some instances of some people that you know that have experienced church hurt, and how has that impacted their willingness to attend church or even have a relationship with God?
So I know both. I've experienced church hurt. I've also know others who've experienced church hurt and left and didn't come back. My story happened probably like in 2013, and I was just done. I was just tired, and I had enough. And as far as I don't really remember the incident that happened. I remember the feelings of the incident that happened. And I was trying to leave. I was trying to move away. And I will never ever forget how funny God is. God is hilarious to me, because what happened was the youngest daughter of my pastors. And I call my pastors mom and dad. And so their girls are my sisters. And so Diamond was still in high school, I want to say. How was Diamond 2013? I don't know. But anywho, so I had told her I was moving, right? I'm leaving. I had like dropped all of ministry that I was on. I had got out of minister's class. Like, I was out. I'm trying to tell y'all the truth. So what happened was, I was licensed by then. I was licensed. And so I was walking down the hallway, and Diamond says to me, "I heard you're moving." So I was like, "Yeah, I'm moving." She said, "No, you're running." I'm sorry, what? She was like, "No, you're running. You shouldn't run." And she walked away and went and got the water fountain. But it rocked me because she spoke. There was no judgment in her tone. There was no condemnation in her tone. But she spoke, and I promise you, although I know Diamond said it, I heard God. And so, because Diamond didn't know, Diamond was a kid, so clearly she didn't know what had happened to me. But she spoke God. And so I know now in 2019 that me leaving was a trick of the enemy.
Yeah.
With all that I have accomplished since that moment, would have still been accomplished, but would have been delayed had I moved before. So I get it. And one thing that I had to learn about church is that people are in church. And so church hurt is really people in church who hurt you, right? Like the church itself did nothing to you, but the people, because you have to remember that we are imperfect people. No matter what our title is, we all have bad days. We all have say the wrong thing at the wrong time or whatever. So I had to realize that it wasn't the church that hurt me. It necessarily wasn't God, and it may have been for you, but for me, it wasn't God that hurt me. It was the people that I had put on a higher level than they should have been, who I elevated, and they caused damage, and I was ready to leave. So that's my story.
I mean, I'm blessed and I'm fortunate that I've never been a victim of church hurt myself, and I think that has a lot to do with my personality and who I am. But I think that as it relates to church hurt, people come to church not just looking for God, but they come to church looking for a relationship with others. They come to church looking for answers. And someone in the world, coming inside the church, they already have this expectation that people in the church are at a higher standard, like you said. Like they've got, some stuff going on. And so when someone who doesn't understand that it's people in the church, they come in and someone in the church says something or does something to them, and they was like, well, these are supposed to be godly people, in the church, because of the expectation and the pedestal that they put Christians on. And so that's a lot of times that's what happens, and it's sad because not every church is the same. And no matter where you go, church, work, club, supermarket, there are going to be people who are fed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's really how you're able to process that. And so I've known of people who've left church because of church hurt. And it doesn't have to be major offenses. Like if I'm still trying to learn my way, you know, around Christianity and all that kind of stuff, and if I miss a Sunday and I come in the next Sunday and someone says, where you been?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could be enough to turn somebody away. Or kind of like, oh baby, your skirt's too short. You know, and so being mindful of the things that we say to people,
and how we say it.
We don't know the impact it has.
Yeah.
And sometimes we could be the one that said something to turn someone away, and we are going to have to be accountable for that. And so it's important to, you know, to kind of, you know, recognize that.
What I'll say is, and I hear this a lot with my friends, especially like girls that I graduated with, is that, you know, they don't go to church because something happened, and then so because you're not going to church, because you're not being I'm sorry, because you're not being weekly fed, you don't have I'm so sorry, and I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, but one thing that I have seen, like I said, is because you're not weekly going to church, you're not weekly being surrounded by Christian people. What I've seen is that people just no longer seek that personal relationship. Like, your church hurt should not prevent you from having a relationship with God. And to tie on to what you were saying, people hurt you inside the church. People can hurt you at work. Do you stop going to work because people hurt your feelings at work?
Come on, preacher.
Like, you know, like somebody, you know, didn't get your order right at Chick-fil-A. Do you stop going to Chick-fil-A forever? Like, no, you just keep coming back because you realize that people are imperfect, even in the church. That's what the church was created for, imperfect people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you should never allow, you know, your past experiences with people at church or church people, whatever, to prevent you from going to church and having that relationship with God. And you cannot have a relationship with God, a strong one, should I say, without going to church. I think that is such a common misconception. Like, listen, prayer is important. Having your personal time with God is important. But if you are not going inside of a church, if you are not worshiping with 2 or 3 other people, if you don't have a man or a woman of God preaching to you, you know, a shepherd, if you don't have somebody that is, you know, a man of God, I'm telling you, your relationship will be tainted. It really, really will. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you pray. Because someone told me that once, like, well, I have a strong relationship with God and I don't have to go to church.
I watch it on TV.
And I was like, yeah, I watch it on TV, or you know, which that's a whole nother conversation too. But like, I'm all with the streaming and all of that, but it's nothing like being in the house of God. It's nothing like being in the house of God, because I know, I'm telling you, when I was in college, I would go to church and then I would come home a lot of times because I didn't really like whatever service I went to, but I would come home and I would listen to my dad because, you know, I just needed that double reinforcement. But what I found was that when you're at home, you have your phone, somebody calls you start cooking, you start, you know, doing random things, and then you look up and they're saying amen, and then it's over. You like, I miss everything, you know. And I also think people come to church, like you were saying, for the experience. You know, you come, you know, it's supposed to be a judgment-free zone. Now, some people forget that, but you come to feel warm, you come to feel welcome, it's that time where you are away from the world and you can be this person that is seeking help from God.
But you know what? But if you're at church, right, and you're not getting those things, then it may be time to look into changing membership.
Yeah, go to another church.
Because the reality of it is, and this is what I've come to know, is that if you walk with God long enough, someone's going to offend you. It just comes with the territory of being, one, a believer, and 2, being in the body. You know, Larissa's a rare. She's rare. She's probably the only person that I know that's never ever experienced some form of church hurt. Because most people that I know has. And the thing about it is that I think the reason why people have church hurt and it cuts so deep is it's unexpected. Because nobody goes to church with the expectation that I'm safe. I'm safe here. And so when I feel like my safety's been violated, the cut is deeper. Because I didn't expect for her to talk about me. I didn't expect for him to do what he did or say what he said, because when I came here, like I'm supposed to be here, and I get here, and someone who ain't right in their own life, says something or does something or whatever, and so I respond to that. And so church hurt happens because we want to put unrealistic expectations on flesh, on humans. And we all need Christ. Like none of us are walking perfect. So again, so that's one thing about it. But the other thing too is that sometimes you have to do an inward check. For example, I know I can be overly sensitive, right? I don't do that. Don't do that. No comments. She tried it. She really tried it in that moment. But I know that about me. So when an offense happens, I honestly can be like, are you just being petty? Like, are you being overly sensitive right now, or was it an honest offense? And sometimes it's an honest offense, and sometimes it's just me being Trinice. So you have to know what your gauge is, because that comes with having. I can go back to it, having a relationship, because God will tell you, no, baby, that was you. You're just being sensitive today, right? Like she really didn't mean nothing by it when she said, you're in my seat. So
I mean, so let me say this though, that as people who are members of a church body, you have a certain level of responsibility, right? Because the people who come to your church may not look like the people that sit next to you every Saturday and Sunday. And so, what we have to understand is that when we're talking about winning souls, we need to be able to accept people that we don't expect, to be able to come into the house. And so you have a responsibility to be mindful of the things that you say and how you act, because people may not be where you think you are. And so with that being said, people come to church and stay in church is really because for relationships. Like that's how people stay. If I go to church, I can probably name 3 or 4 churches where I can get Jesus, where I can have that relationship with Jesus. But the assembly that I'm joined to is because of the connection that I have with people within the church. And so what that says is those people have a responsibility, and to God's people, to make sure that they're not saying and doing something. And I believe a lot of times when people are the offenders, they know that they're offending, and they'll when called on it, they'll be like, oh, I didn't mean it, or I didn't say it like that. So you need to also check yourself to make sure that you're not offending and you're not hurting. And sometimes the best way to do that is to be silent, not to murmur, and take that situation, that person, to God in prayer.
Yeah, this is what I'll say. As a pastor's daughter, this is what I experienced growing up was I didn't have church hurt, should I say, but there were experiences that I can remember that really for a while formed like my perspective of who I thought church people were and what they were like from my own experiences. And and so what I'll say is, and I'll just be real and raw, being a preacher's kid, there is, a standard, that you have to live up to, and, you can't, there's little room for error. Little room for error.
In the eyes of people.
In the eyes of people, exactly, absolutely. And so I grew up, wanting to be this perfect, girl. Now I was very spoiled, so I couldn't. All right. But I wasn't a brat though. Like I still had common sense because I knew my mother. My mother would yank me up in a minute.
What?
But
that was that.
But
side.
But my dad he had no control over me. My sister, it was really bad. So I really and I didn't realize how much of a standard I was trying to live up to until I was to college. And when I went to school, it was like, oh wow, no one knows you.
What? Go on.
Pastor D and Pastor S.
I was a temple. I lost my mind.
And so I was like, that was the first time where I was like, I experienced life. Like I experienced like being Danielle for a while and not being Pastor D and Pastor S's daughter. And so it was a lot for a 17-year-old being in Atlanta, Georgia by herself, and so what I found, so I really did, I started doing a lot of soul searching. I started to like figure out, okay, like who are you? Like, who are you beyond who your parents are? Who are you beyond what people say you are? Because I got that a lot of people, and they don't mean any harm. That's why I identify with people that experience. Like I said, I've never experienced it, but I know what it feels like to experience, church hurt. But people say things, especially, when they are trying to get close to your parents, or they want to like be messy, and they go through the kids. They say stuff to us, or they're upset about how the church is being ran, and they say something to you, and why you let your, or this is the killer. I hated this growing up so much. I would do something and say, I'm gonna tell your daddy, I'm gonna tell your mama. I mean, I still get that. I'm 24 years old. And I still get that to this day. Yeah. And I literally turn red in the face when people say that. And it's not really about, I'm going to tell your mom, I'm going to tell your pastor. Yeah, I don't care about that. And I would tell them that. I would say, like, you can tell them. Like, I'm going to tell your parents. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's what I would say when I was a kid. They'd be like, I'm going to tell your mom and your dad. I'm going to tell your mama and your dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, but to me, it was like, why, we're the same age. Why do you feel... why do you feel like you're okay to say that you're going to tell my parents, as if I am not held to the same standard that you're held? You know what I'm saying? So hold the bubble gum right there. I'm telling you. So I'm saying all of that to say, and just speaking for anyone else who are the daughter or sons of ministers, or someone that holds a position in church, like, it is okay to be imperfect, And what ended up happening was I became very when it came to sharing like my personal business, no one knows. Like even my closest friends, like my parents know all my business. You know what I'm saying? Because that was another thing. Like I don't want to. I did not cut you off. Shut up. I don't want to tell people stuff because they're gonna. And this has happened. I've told close, mentors that I called at my church. I told them close private things. And they share that information with other people, and that hurt me to the core. And so now that I'm grown, I don't share. And it's not just at church; it's at work. Well, my work is in my church, but but the people that I work with don't go to my church. So, but when I went to Spelman, I didn't tell nobody nothing. I mean, even now when I go about my my daily life, I keep my private things to myself, and that's because that is formed as a result of me experiencing what I experienced, with dealing with, with people at church. But my whole point is that for those, I'm just speaking directly to those who are, the descendants of PKs, or if your parent is a minister or whatever, like, it's okay to be imperfect. And this really could be for anybody. Like, it is okay to be imperfect. And like you were saying last week with the the woman at the well, that he who sins not cast the first stone. And so imperfections is why the church was created, and you walk in your imperfections, and you be proud of that, so that God can use that as a testimony.
And you know what? Not only that, but I think that what we as believers, and you touched on it, is we can't be so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good. Meaning that we can't be like, oh no, I'm deaconess so and so, I'm trustee so and so, or I'm on the usher board, and so now when God created the heaven and earth, He asked my opinion. He didn't, right? Like, God is still God, and so if God don't pass judgment, we have to be very, very careful about that. We have to be very, very careful about making somebody feel that they're less than. And you can do that when you feel like you arrived. When you feel like, oh no, I've mastered this whole Christian thing. I've mastered, walking. I've mastered being a church member. I've been here for 30-something years, or I've been here for 2 years, and I've arrived. Because there was a time when you wore a skirt that was too short. There was a time when your blouse may have been cut too low. There was a time when your speech had more curse words than it had now.
God saved you from something.
Right. So let's be clear. So I think that one of the things that I am big on is love. Walking, governing, talking, speaking, living in love. Because somebody says it all the time, people will forget what you say, but they will not forget how you treated them. They will not forget how that experience, made it. But the flip side of that coin is that we as believers have to get to a place where the opinions of man don't define who I am.
Yeah.
Meaning that I can be in a church and maybe I'm not the fit, maybe I'm not the mold they're used to, but I'm not here for man, I'm here for God.
And that takes time.
It does.
As people,
It does.
we all want to feel like we're a part of something, that we belong to something. And when we get into God's house, not only do we want to be in God's presence, but we want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
You know, women's ministry, youth ministry. We want to feel like we're connected. And so what happens is, you know, we're getting all of God. God is feeding us. But then when it comes to relationship with other people, we're dying.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, I'll take the need that I have to have a relationship with someone else, and I'll go seek God someplace else.
Yeah.
You know, so they're both equally important.
They are.
You know, and God does not, you know, God's intention is not for us to be alone. But God's intention is for us to have relationships and to dwell with each other. And so it's important, you know, that we be mindful of that as people in the church, that, like I said before, we do have an obligation to embrace those that come in. You know, when you see someone new coming to your church, you know, embrace them in a godly way. You know, reach out to them. You know, get their phone number, text them. You know, I'll say that my husband is so good for this. Like, someone will come to church, and if it's a male, he'll get the information, and he'll text them in the week, hey brother, just thinking about you, glad to see you there. Because that will make that person want to come back. Because it's like, wow, someone reached out to me. That makes a difference.
Yeah,
The church is a hospital.
Yeah, it is. And I would say, when I was in school, I went to this church, and like, just to tie on to what she was saying, it's so, I mean, any little thing, especially when you come to church and you're broken, and you come seeking help. I mean, you really need help. And I mean, you really, you know, for some people, they really don't want to go, but they feel like they need to. But they're looking for that one thing that will give them an excuse. And that's right. And so, so one thing that I experienced, I wasn't at that point, but I remember when I was trying to find a church in Atlanta, and so I went to this church, and the man, he had like knew my dad or something like that. He was like my dad's frat brother, and so he was like, yeah, I'll look out for her, blah blah blah. And so I was, you know, really excited to kind of have like that male figure that, you know, could help me out and everything. This was my senior year. I was about to graduate. And they were praying. The church always ended out with like a prayer. It was always like a somber, you know, mode, which is different than what, you know, we experience. We always go out shouting and, you know, all that. So anyways, so we were walking out, and I was walking out, me and one of my friends, and I saw him, and I was so happy to see him, and they were like praying, and I was just like reaching for her, like, all right, have a great week. And he was like straight in my face. He was like, I'm praying. And y'all, my friend, he literally grabbed me like this. Let's go. Because I never been in a fight before, but I was about to fight a grown man. I was about
That's
to
gonna be your first fight.
That would have been my first fight in the house of the Lord. I'm telling you. And I went home, and I just cried. I called my daddy. I was like, Daddy, can you believe it? And my dad, who thinks I'm like an emotional, like, mess angel, he's just like, seriously, none of my family members understand why I'm a cry. I cry tears of joy, tears of happiness, tears of I cry over everything. And so anyway, but I learned that, and I wasn't crying that he did that. I wanted to feel
accepted,
embraced. Well, embraced, not accepted, but I wanted to just feel like another manly guy. Yeah, I just wanted to feel that, you know, that love and stuff, being at Spelman, being constantly, you know, we were I feel like we were hazed constantly at Spelman, because and I get it, they want us to be as competitive, they want us to, so I'm constantly like competing and things like that. So when I go to church, I just want to be like relaxed, I want to feel, you know, warm and welcome. And when he like did that, I never forgot that. And so now, like, when I'm, you know, at my home church and everything, you know, I'm very mindful about like how I relate to people and how because, you know, and me being a pastor's daughter, you know, everybody feels like they know me, like they feel like they have this, and I do, and I want people to feel that way, because I do know you, I do have a personal relationship. But there have been times where like I'm not in the mood, like I just want to come in and come out, you know. But people a lot of times they're like, they're yearning for that. They just want to talk to you, you know, especially like the older ones. They don't have nothing to say. They just want to talk and listen. And because I'm a talker,
older people.
And because I'm a talker,
people.
I don't mind, you know. So just when you have that platform, like all of us do, you know, just being very cognizant of how much, you know, how much weight we have with that platform, like how much, you know, God is depending on us to carry out that platform, and to not allow our personal, you know, issues, or oh God, I don't feel like I'm not in the mood and things like that. Like every and I understand that we all come in with our burdens and things like that, but just being very cognizant that every little thing that we do can possibly make or break someone's willingness to come back.
And I get that, right? But let me just get a flip side of that coin, because I'm a minister, and so there are times where I feel like people elevate ministers, like they put us on this platform, and sometimes you want to be like, I'm still human, right? Like I still have some of the same struggles you have, some of the desires you might deal with, I may still deal with, and so sometimes it's not me trying to be snotty or snooty. I just didn't see you. Like you know, I'm not trying to be like I don't think I'm all that, you know, but I just didn't see you that day, or like you thought that I saw you, and I really didn't see you. Like I came in, I had a bad day at work, like, you know, a rough week, or my husband got on my nerves, or, you know, my kids maybe got in trouble, or I'm taking care of mom and dad. So my point is that sometimes we see people's position, and we build assumptions on how that person should live, talk, speak, and walk. And as a minister, I've been put in situations where people are like, well, you're a minister, so what does that mean exactly? Like, should I not hurt you the way you hurt? I still bleed the same way you bleed. And so I said to say, not saying that we should be out here just like wilding out and doing whatever, but at the same time, sometimes we come in to get a word just like you are. Sometimes we're coming in because we need that word. And I'm not trying to be Reverend so-and-so that day. I'm just trying to be a daughter who needs to hear her father talk. So, you know, I think it's balance on both sides, you know, of the coin.
I think that's difficult though, because, you know, as a minister, as a person, you know, not me, as someone who has that position in the church, there is that higher, I don't want to say standard, but that higher calling that you're on for the people. And so, not to say that you can't have a bad day, but, you know, you need to come to me, you know, you need to come to God with your bad day, because you need to be there for the people. I mean, so I think that's difficult, because if there's a minister in my church, I'm looking to that person to be able to encourage me and lift me up, even when they may not feel like it because of the position that they have. Yeah. I know pastor has a bad day, but no matter how bad pastor's day may be, when pastor walks in that door, pastor's got to be able to put his or her bad day in check, because I've got a whole shepherd.
And that's why he's pastor.
Well, and that's what I was saying, because you know, I didn't choose to be the pastor's daughter,
and how did you do that?
I didn't choose to be, you know, in this position. So I wholeheartedly get what you're saying, Trinice. I wholeheartedly get what you're saying. But at the same time, I think that it is, I get what you're saying with, like, I get that all the time. People are always like, I know you see me sitting over here. I know, and I'm like,
I didn't see you.
Ma'am, I really didn't see you.
Like, I really didn't see you.
I'm sorry. Like, you know, especially when you have 5 people that are like, hey girl, and then, you know, black people you can be talking to somebody and they will stand right in front of them to hug you. Oh, excuse me, baby, let me just give her, you know, like, I get all of that. Like, I understand that, you know what I'm saying? But what I've also learned is that, like, you know, my platform, like, you know, where God has placed me, I can't, you know, come to church, like, even though I have things that I want to get off of my chest, like, I can't neglect my duties as the pastor's daughter, because I'm going through things like that. That's why God placed me there. So wait, don't cut me off. Don't do that. So
she just figure me.
Yeah, right. That's like this to the kids. Don't wait. They said don't put your finger in the kids. Don't point. Sound like this. Excuse me.
She just figure. We won't deal with that off the camera.
I know, all right.
So what I'm saying is that I think that's a part of your position, like being imperfect. Like that is what makes you human. That is what makes you relatable. Like I don't think anybody expects But the minister is my dad, my mom, your bishop. I don't think anyone expects them to be these people that are always in a good mood and always, I mean, that's what makes them, relatable. But at the same time, I also think that, we have to be mindful of the things that we say, mindful of our body language, mindful of our facial, because that's a huge thing. My facial expression, whatever I'm thinking, is all over my face, and my mom will, like, I'll be talking to somebody right here, and my mom will be standing right there like, and I know that means fix your face, because I really will be like,
let me ask you a question, Danielle, because I'm such a black and a white person.
Not you.
And then and I have a hard time dealing with people who hurt people, right? And so as a pastor's kid, right, that people in the church, whether or not they're still there, they've left, have hurt your parents.
Oh yeah.
And so how do you deal with, you see them come home and you see them behind the scenes, and they're human, so they hurt. And so how do you deal with having to carry the burden of, they're my pastors, but they're also my parents. And so now Sunday, Wednesday, Tuesday, I have to see these people and love them with the love of the Lord, when what I know is, you just hurt my mom and my daddy.
Yeah. That's
a good question. Like, I want to hear this answer.
I mean, help me, because I'm in the process. Help me, Jesus.
Yeah.
I want to hear this answer.
So I'll start off with this. So when I was a kid, when people would leave the church, I would take it personal. It would tear me up. It would tear me up, and today it still does. When I hear someone that is close to my parents and they leave, especially when they betray my parents. Especially, like my mom and my dad. They are very loving, and to them, ministry, like specifically my mother, she devotes all of her time, her energy, and a lot of people think that she's like this, like really,
she is fly.
She is real classy. You know what I'm saying?
Don't sleep on her.
But my mom is a huge. She's very she has so much love, and she loves hard. She loves on people hard, and so it's very, very painful to when people, in my opinion, take advantage of their love, or they misconstrue like what my parents are about. And so as a kid, it used to hurt me so bad. I used to cry. I used to get really, really upset. And that's why I understand, like, talking to other preachers' kids, we talk about these things. When I was in college, I was friends with a lot of preachers' kids, and it made me feel a little better in knowing that, okay, I'm not the only one that's, but I took it personal. I always thought, I was like, well, why would they leave? Why would they? And I think it came, and to this day, like I said, I'm hurt sometimes. And I think it's just because I know who my parents are. And I look at other pastors, I'm getting thrown up now. I look at other pastors, and I look at, like their children and how, the way their moves. It's just like, but my parents aren't like that. Like my dad will literally give up his the last shirt that he has to give to someone else. And so I think it's more to me than just you leaving the church. It's you hurt my mom and daddy's feelings.
Yeah.
Like it's a very childlike feeling.
Yeah.
It really is. So what I'll say to how I deal with that now as a grown woman, my dad is the type where he's always been like that. Now my dad has had a few people that have left that have, like, I can tell hurt him to the core. Yeah. But what I will say is that a lot of the people that left, my dad is like, okay. But and when I say okay, I mean, like, he's like, God is leading them elsewhere. And because I trust my dad, and he'll say this out of his mouth, because I trust the Father, I trust that wherever God is leading them, that's where they needed to go at that time. And so that gives me solace, that gives me comfort in that it's not like they're leaving because they just want, it's like, no, God is picking them up.
Yeah.
He's moving them out. Now my mom, on the other hand, my mom is like, why would they do that? Like because she's like, she's a lover. She's like, why would they do that? But I did this, and and so with my mom, me and her, we talk, we discuss, the person, and we pray. And so both of them together, like I said, over the years, seeing people leave and seeing people come back, which is another thing that happens a lot, is trusting that, we attend the House of Answered Prayers, and our church, and this is what God has told me before, like a few weeks ago, I was crying out, and it's so funny that you even asked me that, because I was literally having this conversation with Mommy the other day. I was crying out to them, crying out to God, like, well, God, why is this? And they're such good people, and they've done this, and because my parents do a lot of things behind the scenes that so many people do not know. I mean, my dad regularly, 2 or 3 times a week, he is gone at midnight, going to hospitals and doing funerals for people that don't even attend our church, because he's just that person, you know. So I was just crying out to God, and it was almost kind of like a little anger, because I was like, they're just good people. Like, I don't think it's fair, you know. And I was like, God, can you do this? Can you do that? And God just whispered to me. He said, I got them. And that was it. It wasn't my daughter, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. It was like,
mine for the Lord.
Let me tell you, it was straight. And like I said, we were talking about before,
Yeah.
like he talks to you in your language. He was like, I got them. And so it's just been little things like that, where like now that I'm grown, I know that, you know, everybody that leaves, I know that God was doing it. And everybody that comes in, God is doing that too. And I know that God has promised things to my parents. He's promised things to people within the church, and I know that Cornerstone will always be good. And because Cornerstone will always be good, my mom and my dad will always be good, and that allows me to sleep at night.
Thank you.
I think that what I would say, and then we're going to do closing remarks, but I think that what I would say to your question, I'm not a PK, like I'm not a PK, is that when it's hard to be a friend, a daughter, a cousin, and watch somebody who you love be mistreated.
Yeah.
No matter their role.
Mm-hmm.
No matter their role.
Yeah.
But I think that what helps me, because there's a family member who I felt was done wrong by her church, and I don't go to her church now. Like I don't visit her church anymore. When I hang out with her, and so what God had to remind me, what he had to remind me was that she's mine. She's mine. And so it was needed. That process for her was needed. And so I can't be that person, judge and jury. I can't move in the role of God, because God will deal with it, because at the end of the day, that person belongs, like you said, they belong, and God has touched not my anointed. And my anointed is mean because they have a reverend in front of their title. It's my anointed. So you can't, I give that person who's creating the offense against my loved one to God. Because see, God will deal with them way better than I'll ever be able to deal with them. And me being angry, me being bitter, they still living their life. They have no idea that I'm like, I see you. They don't know. Their life is still moving on, and I'm salty and can't function or can't, move. And God's like, who's hurting? Who's hurting? Now, I don't put myself in situations where I have to be around, said people, but at the same time, the commandment is the same. God's commandment, and that's love. And if you love them for show and not in your heart, you're not moving the commandment. Closing remarks.
So I guess I'll say for my closing remark is to not allow your church hurt to prevent you from having a relationship with God and going to church.
Amen.
That's not an excuse. And when you go up to heaven and you're standing before going before his throne, on Judgment Day, you can't say, well, so-and-so, sister so-and-so, pastor so-and-so hurt my feelings in 2010. God's not going to be like, okay, baby, let me move you on. Like, that's not an excuse for him. So I guess that's like my biggest thing. Like, don't allow what has happened to you within the church with people that just happen to attend the same church as you. Do not allow that to prevent you from attending church and having that personal relationship with God. You are missing out on so many perks that come with being a Christian and being a part of a church. And if you experience something at church and you don't want to go to church because of that experience, pray about it and just go to another church. But don't let anything prevent you from going to church and having that relationship with him.
Amen. Come on, Miss Parker.
Be mindful of where God plants you.
Ooh.
Don't allow people to uproot you from where God plants you prematurely. Again, thank you. But again, where you find yourself, believe that God has planted you there. And sometimes the situation that you go through, which may seem like church hurt, it's fertilizer. It's going to help you to grow. And so just kind of take that, into consideration.
Good. That's good.
I don't even have nothing after that. That thing right there was everything.
Come on, Gardner.
Yeah, that thing was right there. That was right. Like I don't even, and I agree with her. I don't have nothing. Like I'm not even being funny right now. That stay where you planted that thing right there because we want to thank you for watching Queen Chronicles The Series. Like I really don't have that thing. This out of me, child. I'm trying to tell you right now.
It's growing. The seed is growing.
What?
Listen,
Come on,
God, church is your planting ground, and those people are your fertilizer.
But you know what? You can put that anywhere though.
Yes,
You put that on your job.
Okay.
You can put that in your family. Like
Yes.
and it goes back to Danielle's puzzle that she used to talk about all the time in some of my old videos.
Oh, yes.
Right? That it's all intentional and all working together. So when you talk about that, you can reapply that to any area of your life and say wherever you are, don't move before it's time for you to move.
Yeah.
That thing right there, you're going to be a preacher. All right, so on behalf of all of us, we so thank you for watching what?
Queen Chronicles The Series.
And we will see you next week. Be blessed.
Go to church on Sunday.
Yes.
Church.
Go to the house.
Happy
not
Resurrection Sunday.
online.
Whenever you get back beyond.
Well, that was last month, boo.
I'm sorry, but always.
You were late.
But
I apologize.
don't be he's a risen.
Yes.
Hosanna.
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
he in heaven. This is his 1 week anniversary in heaven, because 1 month anniversary in heaven, because y'all late.
I apologize, but he's always
On time.
Oh.